Good afternoon, everyone. This is Darlene with Generations Health. Thank you so much for joining us for our webinar today, Cruise Through Caregiving, How to Reduce the Stress of Caring for a Loved One, presented by Jennifer Fitzpatrick. We are so grateful to have Artist Senior Living sponsoring today's program, and we have Kelly Woolsey with us, but there's a couple things I'd like to go over before I introduce her. Really, the biggest thing is that everyone is going to be muted, and that is simply to eliminate any background noise. However, this is interactive, and so we encourage you to ask questions, to answer questions, if you have comments about the discussion that is taking place, please feel free to communicate with us, and you can do that by utilizing the chat feature. If you scroll across the bottom of your screen, you're going to see a little banner that pops up, and on that is a bubble and it says chat. When you click on that, that is going to launch the chat feature, and it'll probably pop up on the right-hand side of your screen. When you ask questions or you have comments, those are only going to come to Jennifer, Kelly, and myself, and the reason for that is simply for privacy. So please feel free to ask questions, answer questions that Jen asked, or if you have any comments. And as I mentioned, we are so grateful to have Artist Senior Living sponsoring today's program, and I would like to introduce Kelly Woolsey, who is from Artist, joining us today. Kelly?
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming on to our webinar. You're going to enjoy it. My name is Kelly Woolsey. I'm the Director of Marketing for Artist Senior Living of Comac. We are a brand new and exclusive memory care community that is opening on Jericho Turnpike in Comac, and will be opening in December with move-ins starting in January. Like I said, we're exclusive to memory care. So anybody with memory impairments, we focus on the person, not the disease. We focus on what they can do versus what they can't do. So our artist's philosophy is all about the why not, and how we can create those positive partnerships and really just have people enjoy their days and create those positive days. Everybody that's involved with artists is very passionate and experienced with dementia care. So we are very excited for our community to be opened. And any questions that you have, my contact information is right there. You can certainly reach out to us, and I'll be more than happy to, let you know all about Artist Senior Living. And thank you again. And everybody that's on this webinar will be receiving one of Jen's books. So enjoy the webinar. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Kelly. And again, thank you, Artists, for sponsoring today. Before the end of the program, I'm going to put a link in the chat box, and that's to a quick survey. And if you wouldn't mind just filling that out at the end, you'll probably need to copy and paste that into your browser, but we would love to hear your feedback after the program. And again, I'll put that into the chat a little bit later. All right, are you a stressed out caregiver? Do you want ideas on how to immediately reduce your stress? If you answered yes to either question, you are in the right place today. Our presenter is the author of Cruising Through Caregiving, Reducing the Stress of Caring for Your Loved One, and a longtime gerontology instructor at Johns Hopkins University's Certificate on Aging program. She is one of less than 800 certified speaking professionals worldwide and has been featured in national media such as The Wall Street Journal, Reader's Digest, U.S. News and World Report, CBS, ABC, and many more. When she's not working, she spends her time fantasizing about when she will be able to wander the aisles of TJ Maxx and Marshalls without a mask. Please join me in welcoming from Kent Island, Maryland, Jennifer Fitzpatrick.
Hey everybody, welcome. So glad you're here with us today. We initially were supposed to be doing this program in person, and I'm so bummed that I'm not with you. I hope someday to meet all of you and to talk to you in person, but I try to run these virtual events as much as possible like we are all together in the same room. So during the program, we're going to do some exercises, and I want you to feel free at any point, if you're a family caregiver caring for a loved one with dementia, I'm sure you have a lot of questions, or you might have ideas that you want to share with your cohorts that are on this program that are caregiving, things that are working for you, things that you want to share with others. So you're very welcome to do that at any point. We welcome that. So let's jump in and talk about cruising through caregiving. Caregiving is no vacation. especially dementia caregiving. But if you want to, and if you make it a goal, you can reduce the stress of caring for your loved one. You can cruise more smoothly through the process. How do we do that? I wrote Cruising Through Caregiving to show everybody every single chapter is a different way to reduce the stress of dementia caregiving. So today, what I'd like to ask everybody to do is just take a moment at your seat at home. If you are on the phone or if you're on your computer, maybe grab a piece of scratch paper. You're going to need scratch paper a little bit later. But if you don't have any scratch paper handy now, but we will want you to have it a little bit later, I want you to score yourself on a scale of 0 to 100, where your stress level is. So 0 would be no stress. I have a really hard time believing that anyone on this program today would fall into that category. No stress with caregiving, dementia caregiving especially, and with all the craziness going on in the world. I think it would probably be very rare. You'd probably have to be on some very powerful medication. Or are you at about 100, where you cannot take another stressful event happening? So what I would like to ask everybody to do is to tell us where they are. If you feel like writing it in, we would love for you to jump in and share your number, or just, you're welcome to very much keep it private. And we did get our first question, so I'm gonna answer that super soon. Our first person wrote in that they're at about 100% stress. Okay, if anybody else wants to write in, we welcome that. But our first question that we received is, are there specific signs of early dementia? So I'm going to be answering that in a moment. We got somebody else wrote in that they're at about a 65. So I'm going to answer the question about early dementia before we keep going, but feel free to keep writing in your score if you would like to. So let me give you a couple examples of what I might be concerned about for early dementia. Now, when you see some of these, and Kelly's saying changes daily, and we know changes daily, but this is a great way to sort of assess yourself every day. Where am I from 0 to 100? But early stages of dementia. Now, signs that something's off. This does not necessarily mean that your loved one or you or whoever you're thinking about has Alzheimer's, or that they have Lewy body or frontotemporal. But what it means is you should get to a doctor and get checked out. So here's some of the stages some of the signs of early stages of dementia. So some signs might be that you forget where you put your cell phone and you can't retrace your steps. So losing your cell phone, and I do it all the time. Sometimes I have to press that Find My iPhone app. That's not something to really worry about. But when you truly can't retrace your steps, well, I was at the grocery store, I was in my car, I was in the backyard, you really can't retrace your steps. That is something that you want to be mindful of. If you are forgetting major issues that are happening, so say your granddaughter just told you she's pregnant and you forget. You talk to your granddaughter 2 days later and you forget that she told you that. Maybe walking out of the house and forgetting how to get back to your house. Maybe you're at the grocery store and you forget, how did I get here? Not where's my car in the parking lot, but how did I get here? If you forget that there is a pandemic going on right now, that could be a sign. For other people, we sometimes see a sign being more that they have a little bit of a personality change. Maybe they, for most of their life, they've been very laid back, very relaxed, but now they're very stressed and hyper. And it's not just because of what's going on in the world. For other people, maybe it's their sense of humor is totally changed. So for the person that asked this question, what I would suggest that you do is you want to talk to the person's doctor and you want to give examples, specific examples of what you're observing. Because just saying that there's memory issues or they're getting lost, we want to be specific. I recommend you start with your primary care doc, but I also really, really like geriatricians and geriatric psychiatrists. I think are some of the best folks that can help when we're worried about someone's memory, because they, even if it's not Alzheimer's or not something, sometimes it can be delirium. It could be that the person has a urinary tract infection. Sometimes it could be that the person has depression. So take it seriously, but don't panic. And you want to take a look and see what could it be and talk to the doctor, but be prepared with specific examples of what you're concerned about for your loved one. And for that person, if they want to ask any more additional questions, feel free to write in at any point. Also, the rest of you. Okay, as for the rest of you, if you are under 7, if your stress level, you would say that you put it 70 or less. So I've been teaching college as an adjunct for about 19 years. And we say a 60 is a D, 70 is a C, 80 is a B, 90 is an A, and 100 is an A+. If you're below a 70 or below a 60, I want you to really be thinking today, what can you do to reduce your stress? Because if you want to, you can. You just have to commit to making some changes. Okay, so we're going to go with this acronym today for CRUISE. So one, we're going to choose. We're going to choose. We want to remember that we chose to be a caregiver. It doesn't often feel like that, but we did. We chose to be a caregiver. Recruit. We want to know that we can recruit others to participate in caregiving. We want to understand that there is, that we want to understand that there, if our loved one does have dementia, we want to know if, as much as we possibly can, about the condition so we know what to expect. So when we understand the condition, we are going to be able to reduce our stress. Integrate. We want to integrate caregiving into our life. When we are at maximum stress, it often means that caregiving is the only thing in our life. S, the senior care system, and Artist Senior Living being part of that senior care system. We want to know about the senior care system because you are going to need something at some point from the senior care system if you're not already utilizing it. Expect, the E is for expect. You want to expect to course correct at some point, okay? If you are finding yourself in a place right now where you're not stressed and maybe you're saying my stress level's at a 20, you're doing pretty well, maybe you want to keep things the way they are now, but we want to know that as dementia caregiving, you go through the process of dementia caregiving, you are going to be, your loved one's going to be changing. And what you need to do to get through the way you help your loved one is going to change. And so we want to expect to course correct. Whatever's working today, wonderful. No need to change it if it's working, if your stress level is low, but expect that you may need to course correct at some point or another. Okay, so let's go a little bit through all of those. So the first one is choose to look at caregiving as a decision you made. And I know there's probably a lot of people on this program that said, no, I didn't. I did not choose to be a caregiver. I don't want to be a caregiver. It's hard. I don't like caregiving. Many people feel that way, but I want you to just give yourself a lot of kudos right now because Kelly could tell you this. Anybody that works in this field knows that there are so many people who don't have family caregivers. Nobody steps up to the plate. Adult kids don't pay attention. Nieces and nephews don't care. Spouses neglect. So when you being on this program and the fact that you're taking good care of your loved one, it's a decision you made. It might not feel like it. It might feel like of course I'm going to be my mom's caregiver, just like I'm going to brush my teeth in the morning. But for a lot of people, I want you to remember they do not have family caregivers. That your loved one has you as a family caregiver is because of a choice you made, and it's a very loving choice, okay? So remember that. So whatever you're doing is a lot more than a lot of people get from their loved ones. So keep that in mind whenever you're having a rough day. Recruit. You want to look at recruiting a caregiving crew, even if you truly believe there's nobody else. I've been in this field since I was 16. I'm going to turn 47 next month. And I got to tell you, I've heard it from so many people. I'm the only one. Nobody else cares about my husband. Nobody else cares about my mom. I'm the only person that's here. But there is help. You can recruit a caregiving crew to be part of the team if you want to, even if you believe there's nobody else. And we're going to talk about how to do that. Who should be part of the caregiving crew? So I write about in Cruising Through Caregiving. I use, of course, boating analogies. But first, the primary caregiver, who's probably many of you on this program today, is what we call the captain of the ship. And if you've ever been on a boat, you know that the captain of the ship is typically, there's only one captain. There's really only one captain. You want to take direction from one captain. And there really is almost always one primary caregiver, whether it's an adult child, a niece, a spouse. But that person really is sort of like the CEO of a company. They should be overseeing, or the captain that should be giving directions to other people. They're going to do some of the hands-on work, but we want that person to be delegating. A captain should be delegating. First mate of the caregiving crew, a secondary caregiver. So this is somebody that my husband and I boat, and I'm the first mate. And so my husband is a good captain. And if he's out on the water, he can probably do everything by himself. But I'll tell you what, on a day where the weather's really rough, he really likes that I'm there as the first mate, because I can look out. If we're in an area where visibility is tough, I can see what's coming. When we get to tie up at a marina, I'm the one that makes sure that we tie up and that we don't hit anything. And again, a lot of captains would be able to do this for themselves, but having a first mate is great. So your secondary caregiver, we want that person, or those people, we want at least a couple of secondary caregivers. They're going to do tasks that are going to support you as the primary, and they're going to also do tasks that might support your loved one. So if anybody has any idea of what they might have a secondary caregiver do, or maybe you are on this program and you're saying, I'm that person, I'm the secondary caregiver, I'm the first mate, write in, let us know, what does that person do? So this first mate person can do something to help the captain specifically, or to help the person who has dementia. So the dock hand is what I call the tertiary caregiver. So if my husband and I are out on the water on the Chesapeake and he's captaining the ship and I'm the first mate, but let's say it's really rough waters, really windy, we can get into a slip at a marina if we need to. It might take us a while, but if there's a dock hand on the dock at the marina to help pull us in, wow, it's such a welcome sight. So a tertiary caregiver, I would liken to somebody who's doing something specifically for the captain. So if you find yourself that you have a tertiary caregiver, or you are a tertiary caregiver, I want you to write in and tell us a little bit about what that person does for you. So if you have, I'm going to see if we have anybody writing in the chat section. So feel free to write in the chat section. Okay, so what we want is, when we're forming a crew, a caregiving crew, we want to ask the right person for the right thing. So let's go back. The primary caregiver, who is the captain of the ship, that person is probably going to do a lot for the person with dementia. They might be in charge of taking them to the doctor's appointments. They might help that person get dressed in the morning. But again, we don't want them doing everything. What do we want? We want people who are the tertiary and the secondary caregivers who can do other tasks. So yeah, we got somebody saying that the primary, yes, we want the primary to be hands-on. We got somebody wrote in, but we don't want them to be hands-on with everything. With some things, yes. We don't want them to have to do everything. So what kinds of tasks can we assign to the secondary? So a secondary caregiver might be your sister comes over and she stays with mom while you go take a walk with your kids. So she might do something direct with your mom. There also might be a neighbor who gets your groceries. So she really doesn't have anything directly to do with your mom, but she's doing something. She goes to purchase her own groceries, and she, she's buying the groceries for you and for mom. So, but she doesn't have to do anything direct. but a secondary caregiver is doing something for you and or your loved one. It also might be that you have a grandchild who's going to take mom to the doctor when you have a really important meeting that you can't change. So we've got Andrea says, at times I'm the primary, but mostly I'm doing secondary paperwork. But the only direct interaction with mom and aides is on the weekends. Okay, great. So you get the idea there, Andrea. So, but I'm guessing that there's a primary, Andrea, that's in charge of saying, hey, can you be here on the weekend? Or would you be able to be in charge of the paperwork? So what do we want from a tertiary? So a tertiary, I'm going to give you an example of a tertiary caregiver. A tertiary caregiver is going to do something that's indirect. It's going to provide some sort of indirect help, whether for the primary, usually for the primary. So I'm going to give you an example. So I have a colleague who lived on the East Coast, and she would visit her parents in a different city every couple weeks. Every couple months, and she'd go for long weekends to help and give her siblings a break. So she was a secondary caregiver. So she was this first mate role. When she would come into town, and it was expensive, she was spending money on flying out there to the Midwestern town where her parents resided to give her siblings a break. But one of the things that some of her parents' friends did that I thought was really neat is they said, Susan, when you're in town, let us lend you our car. We'll pick you up at the airport, and then you can take one of our cars, and then you have it for the time that you're in town with your parents. Now, isn't that beautiful? Now, the parents' friends who wanted to make this gesture, they were older and frail and had issues themselves. They weren't necessarily going to be able to run their older friends to the doctor or help them in the bathtub or anything like that. But what they were able to do is contribute a vehicle to save Susan some money while she was traveling. Here's the thing. A lot of people in your life want to provide these gestures if we let them know we are open to it. So I want you to be thinking, especially if you're one of those people that says, I have nobody. There's no one else. I'm the only one. I want you to remember that there's almost always somebody that will help if we let people know that we are open to the help. When we're forming a caregiving crew, we want to ask the right person for the right thing. So I got to tell you that if someone calls me and wants me to be part of their caregiving crew, maybe they want me to be a tertiary caregiver, and they're saying, we are open to help, and they say, we'd love for you to bring a meal once a week, I'm probably not a great person to ask. To make, can you make a lasagna? We're going to put you on that meal train. But what I would do is I'd order delivery for them, or I would maybe get a gift card for DoorDash or Grubhub or something like that so they could pick what they wanted to have. So I think it's important. So, we had somebody write in that they are a secondary caregiver that is doing paperwork. It might be that the primary caregiver doesn't have time, doesn't have energy for paperwork. Jill is saying that the asking is the hard part, and I know. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We want to try to figure out who is the right person for the right thing, and we're going to do an exercise that's going to help you figure that out. So what we're going to do right now, I'm going to set a timer for 5 minutes, and we're going to do this exercise together. Make sure you have a piece of scratch paper with you, okay? So I'm going to give you about 5 minutes, and I want you to empty your brain. I want you to write down everything that you're thinking about that is stressing you out. Whatever it has to do with, it could be something specific about caregiving, bathing your husband, keeping track of medicines. It could be that you're missing seeing your grandkids. It could be that you're stressed out because you don't know how to deal with taking your mom out during COVID. But I want you to write down any task that's causing you stress. Trying to get your loved one to wear a mask. I want you to write down any task that's causing you stress. It could be cooking dinner. It could be paying bills. So I'm going to give you a few moments, and we'll reconvene in a few moments. Just take a few moments to write down. And write down as many tasks that you have to do that stress you out. All right, I'm going to give another moment or two. And thanks to everybody that's writing in some examples. Feel free to keep them coming if you would like to. I'm hearing Medicaid applications, dealing with another loved one's health, watching the news, bills, house cleaning, yard work, kids, laundry, food shopping. Remember that watching the news, however, is not one that you absolutely have to do. Recertifying Medicaid paperwork, interacting with a resentful sibling, taking care of your dog that's old. Yeah. Okay. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go to the next step in the MET exercise. And at the end, even though Kelly and the team at Artist has been so kind, they got a book, a copy of Cruising Through Caregiving for all of you who are participating today, a hard copy. If you go to cruisingthroughcaregiving.com at the end of the program or now, you can actually download all of the worksheets from the book as well as the first chapter. But this MET exercise, if you want to do it another time, plus there's many other exercises that are you can download completely for free. They're all in the book, but then this way you have hard copies of them that you can photocopy if you want and share with others. Okay, step one. So I want you to put that list aside. This is all the tasks you're stressing out about. We're going to go to step two. Well, first you're going to label that list. Sorry, I jumped ahead of myself. Need help with list. Need help with list. Put that label on the top of that list. Need help with. So now we're going to go to two. What I would like to ask everybody to do is I'm going to give you about 2 minutes, and without regard for age, finances, geography, or anything else, I want you to write down at least 20 people who care about you. And I do not want you to limit it to immediate family or neighbors. I want you to think about extended family. I want you to think about friends. I want you to think about people from your faith community. I want you to include grandkids, great-grandkids. I don't care if the person is 6 months old. I don't care if the person lives in New Zealand. I want you to write 20 people who you believe care about you. 2 minutes. while we were doing part 2, we have somebody else writing in that some of the tasks that are stressing them out. Andrea, thank you. Choice for assisted living, cleaning out a house full of junk, dealing with pandemic, and heartbreak that's not understood by the loved one with the disease. So what we're going to do now is we are going to label, or we're going to leave that list aside, but we're going to do a couple more minutes, and I want you again to list at least 20 people that you think of that care for you, that care for your loved one. Again, don't think about age, geography, finances. If, for example, you're thinking, well, my son cares about me, but he also cares about my husband who has dementia, that's okay. You can just put a check next to his name, but I want you to think of at least 10 additional people that care about your loved one. 10 to 20 additional people. And I know that there's going to be some repeats because you know a lot of the same people. So take a couple moments to do that. So we are going to merge those two lists, and these are your possible helpers list. And if you truly feel like you don't have anybody, there should be some people on this list that you can figure out how to get help from. I want you to think about matching them up. So who can give me an example of somebody on that list of possible helpers that can help with one of the tasks that you are stressed out about? Now, the first one that I'm thinking of is somebody wrote in about assisted living options. They want to explore assisted living options. There has got to be somebody on that list that can make phone calls or go online and screen out down to 3 places that you want to look at, or 2 places that you want to look at. There has got to be somebody on that list. Now, remember, this person does not have to live in your neighborhood. They don't have to live anywhere near you. What you need to probably do is talk to them about your budget, what your preferences are in cruising through caregiving. In the chapter on how to select senior living, there's all sorts of how to identify your must-haves for senior living. So the geographic area, the other types of issues depending on what your preferences are, the pricing. So that is something you absolutely could match up with somebody on that list. Now, somebody else wrote in, and again, if anybody has made a match that they want to share with us, I'd love to hear it. But I also want you to be thinking about some of the stuff that might be on your list. So watching the news, if that's stressing you out, I want you to be considering, do I need to watch the news? Or do I want to just get some highlights once a day or a couple times a week? Or do I want to change the source where I get my news if the places where I'm getting my news is stressing me out? Or do I want to just choose 1 or 2 sources that really, or do I want to put somebody that's on my list as somebody that screens the news and just tells me what I need to know? Somebody that I trust. Ironically, you did all, somebody said, I did all the assisted living research yourself as the caregiver. Okay, your stress level is about different opinions regarding when and how to go forward with assisted living. Well, it's interesting, Andrea. It might be that there's somebody on that list that they can be, somebody that you know that cares about you and the loved one that you're caring about, and their job can be to walk you through it, to be there for you and listen to you during this time where you kind of weigh the pros and cons and when's the right time. Of course, that also could be the job of a psychotherapist or people that you meet in a support group. But it might be that you want to pick one or two trusted people who you know are objective, that they don't have strong feelings of when your loved one should go. And that can be a way that they can be a tertiary caregiver, that they can be part of your caregiving crew. Now, I want to mention that for those of you who mentioned doing Medicaid applications, I want you to be very mindful that if your loved one has assets, that you may want to reconsider doing the application yourself, that this and doing any Medicaid planning is probably the job for an elder law attorney. And I, in particular, like CELA's, C-E-L-A is the credential. And I believe that many of these folks are going to give you a free 15-minute consultation if you call their office. But if your loved one has no assets, no money, no income, that's one thing, if you're going to just go directly and fill out a Medicaid application. But if your loved one has assets, I would really strongly encourage you not to do that. I would consider an elder law attorney, C-E-L-A, after their name. And to find one that you want to interview and ask, do you offer a free consultation? Can I talk to you to see if you'd be a good fit? NAILA.org, and I put that in the chat section. And I talk a lot about that in Cruising Through Caregiving. I will tell you, I've been in this field since I was 16. I'm going to be 47. I would never complete a Medicaid application for an older loved one that I have in my life. Never. I would, if that person had assets, I would absolutely go to an elder law attorney. However, if that's causing you stress and you're thinking, okay, my loved one has assets, you're telling me not to complete a Medicaid application on my own, this is something maybe you can assign to somebody on that possible helpers list. Can they go through the NAILA website and figure out a couple of elder law attorneys that I could interview, or they could interview them for me and say, hey, this person seems like they're the good fit. So I want you to always be knowing that it's probably very likely that there are people that can help you. And I would suggest that if you, and Jill, yes, it's an extensive process, and that's exactly why I think talking to an elder law attorney is a good investment. It might, for some reason, it might not be appropriate for you and your loved one, but I would at least have a conversation to see if it is. And it's something that you might be able to pull a tertiary caregiver in to help with paperwork. Now, one of the tasks that you might decide from your possible helpers list is you think, you know what, this is just too much. I don't want to go to all these possible helpers and match them up with all these tasks. Pick a secondary caregiver to do that for you. I bet that all of you have somebody, a friend, a neighbor, a family member, somebody from your faith community that has said to you, let me know if I can help. And maybe you've never known what to tell them. And maybe you say to them, look, maybe they can set up a website like on Lots of Helping Hands. It's a free website. There's lots of other ones out there. I believe care.com has this, where you can put tasks and assign. That could be something that you could assign somebody that's part of your caregiving crew, so you don't have to make the asks directly. Here's the thing. Not everybody on your possible helper list is gonna help you, but it's interesting. The energy that you put out when you demonstrate that you're willing to accept help, oftentimes, maybe your brother in Texas is useless. He's not gonna ever help. He's never gonna do anything. But okay, and that's lousy. I get it. It's disappointing. It hurts. But it might be that this neighbor who you barely ever talk to, she used to take care of her mom that had dementia, and she hears from somebody through the grapevine that you're open to help. Maybe she's going to offer to do something. Maybe she'll offer to keep your garden up while you're busy. Maybe she'll be somebody that can sit with your mom for a half hour while you take a shower. These are, when you start putting that energy out there, you might be surprised what comes back. For those of you who are still not convinced, I want you to think about, who are you excluding from caregiving? My best friend, Megan, had her first baby after 20 plus years of marriage a couple years ago. And when she got pregnant, she was 44 when she had Betty. Betty's the baby. And when she got pregnant, everyone was so happy for her. She and her husband have wanted a baby for so long. And when she got pregnant, I remember saying, you know what, I'm going to throw the shower. I'm so excited. And people started contacting me, like our mutual friends and friends of hers that I didn't know that well, and her sisters-in-law. And they started saying to me, what can I do? How can I help with the shower? And I remember thinking to myself, I don't need help. I have it all covered. I picked out a place and I was, outsourcing everything. But all of a sudden people started making specific suggestions. So our one friend said, hey, well, what about decorations? And I have to tell you, I'm horrible with decorations. I don't have an artistic bone in my body. And I thought, okay, bring decorations. And then one of Megan's sisters-in-law said, well, what do you have for favors? Can I bring favors? And I said, yeah, I didn't even think of favors yet. And then another sister-in-law called and said, well, what else can I help with? And I'm like, I can't really think of anything. And actually then I started thinking, well, hey, I don't really, the place where I'm hosting the shower doesn't have cake included. Do you know of a good bakery? Yeah, I'm going to take care of the cake. Now, this is a joyous occasion, so people think of ideas to help. They're excited. There's a new baby coming. But can you imagine if I excluded all of those folks who wanted to be part of the process and said, no, I got everything. I'm going to take care of everything myself. I think a lot of people would have been disappointed and hurt. And I don't think Megan's joy would have been as complete. She was so overwhelmed. I made a list of everything that other people did so she could include it in the thank you notes. And she just was so overwhelmed with joy that people cared that much. I want you to know that it's most likely that if you're not letting people into your caregiving crew, there's probably some people that do feel excluded, that they want to help, and they just don't know how. The U in crews is we want you to understand your loved one's condition. If your loved one has Alzheimer's, learn about it. If your loved one has Lewy body, learn about it. This is going to help you understand what to expect, because a lot of times people think, well, whatever's going on today, this is how it's going to be for the next 6 months, year, 5 years. And these conditions do change, and we need to course correct, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. Kelly was saying when her grandfather was in rehab a couple years ago, they all had a day to visit, and they did a daily notebook when someone went, and so everyone could communicate what was happening. That's a great idea. And Andrea is saying that she did a daily notebook with all nuclear family members who came to the house, and the aides could all write in and stay in the loop. Wonderful way to communicate. And for some families, that's way better than using a website. But for other families who are more tech savvy, using something like Lots of Helping Hands can be really good too. So when we understand our loved one's condition, we're going to reduce our stress. So we want to choose to remember that we are choosing to be a caregiver, even if it doesn't feel like it. Reframe it. R, we want to know we can recruit. The U, we want to understand our loved one's condition to reduce stress. The I is we want to integrate caregiving into our life. If caregiving is your whole life, you are not at a good place. I bet that your stress level is 100. You might even say it's higher than 100. You are supposed to have multiple facets of your life. Think about somebody that's a workaholic and maybe they lost their job during this difficult time. Maybe they retire and they don't have anything anymore. People who are caregivers, if that's all they have in their life, they are not healthy most of the time. They're exhausted, they're burnout, their health suffers, their mental health suffers. So in order to reduce your stress, you need to integrate caregiving in your life. Caregiving can be a big part of your life. It can be an important part of your life, but we don't want it to be the only part of your life. S, remember the senior care system. If you're not working within the senior care system yet, you will be. But the senior care system is imperfect. We want to accept good enough. I have a whole chapter in Cruising Through Caregiving about this. Your loved one deserves good care. Your loved one deserves to be well fed. They deserve engaging activities. They deserve to be kept clean and to be treated with respect. All of that, of course. But it's interesting when people finally reach the end of their rope and they say, well, I'm going to use adult day. I'm going to use a home care aide. I'm going to work with a senior living company like an artist. They almost expect it to run like a Ritz-Carlton. And most good, reputable senior livings strive for excellent customer service, but they're healthcare communities, and they're not going to be perfect. All of us make mistakes. So you want to be thinking about what's the priority, what's good enough. You need to become a partner. So if you're working with a home care agency or an adult day center or an assisted living community, you want to always remember that you're their partner. And believe me, I'm not advocating bad care. We want your loved one to have good care, be treated with respect, be clean, be given good food, all of that. But we want to know that we want to accept good enough, because nobody is going to do care exactly the way that you would. So just think about that when you're going through the senior care system. Most people who are in our field are trying to do the best that they can for your loved one. Now, that doesn't mean that if you're not happy with something that occurs or the way that someone treats you or your loved one, that you don't take action. Of course you do. But I want you to know that the senior care system, elder law attorneys, home care aides, your local area agency on aging, your Alzheimer's Association, none of them are perfect, but most of them are trying to do the best that they can. And as a caregiver, you are probably going to need something from the senior care system at some point. I write about Nancy Reagan, former First Lady Nancy Reagan, in Cruising Through Caregiving. Nancy Reagan was really public about not wanting anything from the senior care system, not wanting to move her precious President Reagan to senior living ever. But it's interesting because the Reagans had some things that we did not, most of us don't have. And it's not just money. She had the Secret Service at her house. If President Reagan was wandering, I'm guessing that is who would prevent him from leaving the home in Bel Air, California. President Reagan had physicians and nurses in their home. And a lot of us just don't have that sort of support at home. So just know that you want to make the best decision for your loved one, but you're probably going to need something from the senior care system at some point. The E in CRUISE, I want you to expect to need to course correct. Expect to need to course correct. If everything's working now, you might have said, you know what, your stress level is an 85. Your stress level is a 10, or you're 20 or 15. I'm doing pretty good. We're managing pretty well. Great. But expect that as the disease progresses and as your stress level progresses with the increasing needs of your loved one, you might need to course correct. You might think today, I will never move my loved one. I will never bring a stranger into the home. This MET exercise, I don't need to ask for help. If you have any of those thoughts, and I know that many of you might be thinking some of those thoughts, just keep an open mind. You're probably going to need to course correct at some point. You might need something to change because of your changing needs or because of your loved one's changing needs. So you want to cruise. Caregiving is never a vacation. But as we go through the caregiving process, especially with somebody with dementia, we want to know that we chose to be a caregiver, even if it doesn't feel like it. Your loved one is already so lucky, because there are so many people with dementia out there that have nobody in their corner, nobody doing what you're doing. We want to recruit people to help us. We want to understand our loved one's condition, integrate caregiving into our life. And the senior care system, we want to know that we're probably going to use it, and we want to communicate well with them. They are our partner. And we want to expect, probably at some point during the caregiving, dementia caregiving process, expect to cruise correct at some point. The caregiving voyage can be long. The caregiving voyage can be long. But what we want is within the next week, for wherever you put your stress level, whether you said it was at 100, a 90, an 80, we want to bring it down by at least 10 points. What can you do in the next week or so? Can you take an hour for yourself? Can you ask somebody to start putting together a list of who can help with what on Lots of Helping Hands? Can we start to assign to somebody looking at senior living or looking at hiring an elder law attorney? But you're the only one with the power to reduce your stress, and you can reduce your stress. Caregiving is no vacation, but if you want to be less stressed, you can cruise more smoothly through the process. Thank you so much. Please go to cruisingthroughcaregiving.com to get all the worksheets and a free chapter, although I know that Kelly and Jacqueline are providing a copy of the book to you, but if you want the hard copies of the worksheets, feel free to go here. And I know Darlene is going to share with you a survey that we're going to ask that you take, just copy and paste into your browser and just give us a little bit of feedback. If you can tell us if there's anything you want to share about your experience with us today. And we're going to turn it back over to the team at Artis Senior Living.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Jen. That was fantastic. A lot of good information and tips, and I can't wait to read through that whole book. So again, thank you so much on behalf of Artis Senior Living of Comac. The other thing that you guys can do is to make sure that you go onto our Facebook page, the Artis Senior Living of Comac Facebook page, and if you click like it, then you'll be receiving updated information about our upcoming webinars and events. So you'll always have that information. But as of right now, the next event that we're hosting is Communication and Behavior with Amy Matthews. This one we're trying to do at a restaurant. We're hoping that it'll be a face-to-face sort of or mask-to-mask sort of thing, but we will definitely let people know if that changes to a virtual. Right now, we're trying to have it because it's going to be outside at the tables at the restaurant. So as that changes, we will let people know, but we're keeping our fingers crossed. So again, thank you so much to everybody. Thank you to Generations. Jennifer, thank you. This was a great webinar, and thanks for everybody for joining in.
And thank you so much. And thank you, Artis, for sponsoring today. I did put the link for the very quick survey into the chat. You will most likely just need to copy and paste that into a browser. And again, we would appreciate any feedback that you have about today's program. We look forward to seeing you again. Thank you again, Artis. Have a wonderful week, and we will look forward to seeing you soon. Take care.